All right, so welcome back to the PCC podcast. So today we are honestly starting a new little mini series that I'm super excited about, and you guys are going to get to know our team and Julia in this episode, Coach Julia, and we're going to just start these coaches corners, coaches roundtables. Haven't officially figured out a name yet, but something where you get to hear us really collaborate as coaches on our practice and what we're doing with clients and just see a little bit more behind the scenes. And we're just going to go into some hot topics that are really relevant for a lot of our clients right now. So today, that is about functional lab testing. So, do you actually need functional lab testing? How to know kind of where to start, and what are the signs that this might be a necessary step for you? So, basically, to kind of bring us in, we typically see this happening. I mean, a lot with a lot of our clients that are coming in, but you could probably speak to this too, because you're kind of like starting off with a lot more of our new clients lately. But I feel like a lot of our clients are not like doing nothing. Like they have been tracking calories, like doing a caloric deficit, working out regularly, and then they're still not seeing their body respond. So, what are you seeing on your end?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the times clients have been coming to us more recently and, with the education that's out there about being in a calorie deficit, getting your steps in, getting your water in, right? All of these habits, they're like, I'm doing all the things and it's just nothing is happening. And that's even more frustrating when you know what to do and you're doing it and nothing's changing.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like the demographic that we work with has definitely shifted to like more knowledgeable, which is like a good thing. But then we're just in this even more like frustrated spot of like, okay, so then what? Do I need to look deeper? And then a lot of the people that I talk to, even on like discovery calls, are like, yeah, so I went to my doctor and then they told me everything was normal. I'm like, okay, but, let's go a little bit deeper there. So, what would you say, like, when you're working with a client, what
Mhm.
would you say is like the point at which you kind of decide, all right, something is kind of up here, like let me go a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I think when they are, established in their routine, right? They have been working out for, a couple of months to a year. They've been hitting their water target of, a half a gallon to a gallon a day. They know to eat high protein. They're eating their fiber, right? They are having that healthy lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
But their health is not reflecting that. I think that's kind of like the red flag. Now, just say like someone comes to us and they're having, some bloating, right? Or they're having some constipation. Well, that's where we kind of say like, hey, like are you drinking water? Are you eating fruits and veggies? Are you eating fiber, right? How's your stress levels? And just kind of like troubleshooting the symptoms first.
Yeah.
And normally, right, for like a typical person, like that would help. They'd be like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually having a bowel movement every day. Like I would just wasn't drinking enough water.
Yeah.
But it's those clients who they're already doing all of that, right? And they're still having those chronic issues. Like that's when it's kind of like red flag.
Yeah, definitely. I do the exact same thing. I guess I call it like process of elimination. Like
Mhm.
basically, let's go down the checklist, right? And I've even had clients who recently, because we've been more vocal about like the functional side of what we're doing, I've had them ask like, so should I get these tests or whatnot for like X, Y, and Z symptoms? And I'll literally like lay it out for them. Like, here's your checklist, right? So here's the behavioral side, and like what are we doing on the behavioral side? Are you checking all these boxes like most of the time, right? Not perfectly. And then secondarily, like the mindset side and like how our stress contributes to this, and like are we creating more of that way? And then if you're knocking all that down and like we're still struggling with this, like let's talk, right? So we're just going a little bit deeper there. But I guess like how common is it that it's like not in people's head, that it's not just their behavior that you're seeing, at least as we're starting to like excavate more labs, like how common is it versus just it being a behavioral thing?
Yeah, I like that you brought up the behavior side of it because a lot of the times people come with symptoms, just say it's poor sleep, right?
Hmm.
And we'll be like, okay, like are you avoiding caffeine? Are you avoiding blue light? Like how's your bedtime routine? How's your morning routine? But a lot of the times like it's your own mind like fighting against you. So that's a
Yeah.
huge part that people don't realize, that like your behaviors, like that is what, for me, like I had chronic stress, adrenal fatigue, all of the things. And that's what was causing my chronic constipation. Not what I was eating,
Mm-hmm.
not what I was drinking, not the workouts I was doing. It was my literal stress. So once I figured that out, but going back to the question of like how common is it, are we seeing it? I think it's more common for people to come dysregulated to us than it is to get a client who's like, no, like I actually feel good. Like things
Yeah.
are going well.
You're
So I
not
think it would
wrong.
be like rare for somebody to come, because that's kind of just the lifestyle that people are living, is just living in that feeling of not doing well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, and I kind of like talked on this in the last masterclass, but like something that gets me like up on my soapbox is just kind of like the state that most women have accepted as normal
Mm-hmm.
is like really kind of a burnt out, like just run down into the ground state. But we don't know any different because like we want to be the breadwinner and we want to like do all these things with our fitness and we want to achieve at work. And so like just constantly being go, 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 anxious all the time, stressed the F out, like that's just normal. And so we don't even realize like how we could feel.
Yeah, and I think of like that meme where it's like, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine. And I feel like that's like 90% of the women that we see is like they're just pushing through, right? So
Yeah.
just say they're having poor sleep, they wake up in the morning, they have no energy like you kind of experienced, and then they go about their day and they're nonstop all day, they don't take a second to breathe. Dinner time comes around, they haven't eaten one meal yet, they drank one glass of water, and then they go to bed like stressed the F out.
Hmm.
So that, I feel like that's kind of been like the cycle that I've seen, is just being stressed all day, not having a minute to yourself, and it's just impacting like other areas of your life now. Not just your energy, but your job and your family and your relationships. So
Yeah, definitely. And I think to the point of like your um, physiology affecting your psychology, affecting, they all go intertwined. And I think back to kind of what you were saying about like fighting with your own mind on things. Like I never want to say that and have that be like taken as, oh, it's all in your head then, right?
mm-hmm.
But more so from the lens of like our mentality can like fuel or like diffuse what's
Mm-hmm.
going on physically. And so like I'll use my example, like the underlying beliefs that I had, and I'm like still working through breaking these, are that I can't be successful if I'm not working harder or if I'm not working constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is like a subconsciously rooted belief that fuels the thoughts and behaviors of constantly feeling like I'm on all the time for work, or like not being able to like set the boundary or hold the boundary or unplug, which then leads to the hormonal imbalances
Mm-hmm.
of being burnt out. And so I think it's just really important that like when you're right, most women will come to us more dysregulated than not. It's like we're tackling it from the behavioral side of let's change these habits that like should help with your physiology. Let's also tackle the psychology of like what started all this stuff in the first place. And then the labs are really kind of just figuring out exactly what's wrong with it. Cause like we kind of know that like something's off usually with all of that. And then like being able to direct those efforts more specifically. Is that right for you?
Yeah, definitely. Just getting to the behaviors first, and then like fine tuning, like going through with a fine tuned comb of being like, okay, well, we see your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, like that is low. But the reason it's low is because of your stress. So as long as we tackle your stress first, like that's going to like tumble into helping your hormones. So a
Yeah.
lot of people will say, like, I have low progesterone, how do I fix it? And they'll attack the hormone.
Yeah.
But why do you have low progesterone? That's what we want to know, not how do you raise your progesterone. Same thing with like cortisol, right?
Hmm.
I have really, really, really low cortisol. That means that I need to, raise the cortisol. But a lot of the times it was high for so long, that's why it's now low. So it's a lot of like
Yeah.
going backwards, getting to the why, and not necessarily just tackling a lab value. Um,
Mm. Yeah.
They're never going to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has something, but there is usually one overarching reason why you're having that dysregulation. So for me, like in my own journey of, autoimmune diseases and everything else, it was triggered by me going to college as a freshman, being so stressed, being, working two jobs, being that type A, 4.0 student, as you know, and just
Yeah.
being so burnt out and so stressed. That's when I was diagnosed with celiac. That's when I started having my gut issues. That's when I had irritable bowel disease diagnosis, my psoriatic arthritis diagnosis. That's when like my ANA titers for my autoimmune diseases were crazy high. My cycle started being irregular. My acne started, my constipation, just like all of that at once. And I was like, whoa, like what is happening? But it was all due to that root cause of just being so type A.
Yeah.
So instead of tackling, like, the rheumatologist wanted to give me infusions to bring down my immune system. But instead of doing that, I really just pulled back and was like, wait, why is this happening? Not how do
Yeah.
I, suppress it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because if you have a hormonal dysregulation, it's like we can take a bunch of supplements, but are we
Mhm.
really tackling the thing that created that monster in the first place? Um, so then for you, like how, because this is, I think, where the bridge is of like, we can obviously work a lot with just symptoms, lifestyle, psychology, behavior, and like tackle a lot because, like, overall, if we're looking at the root of like what behaviors, what beliefs, what patterns create these sort of dysregulations in the first place, like we can get pretty far with that. But then with
Mhm.
getting these labs done, I can speak to my experience as well, but I would love to hear from you. Like, how did having the answers, like being able to get something more functional, go deeper than just what the doctor says is fine. Like, how did that then like validate and verify and motivate you further?
Yeah, I think, specifically with my Dutch test and my GI map that I got it back in 2020.
Okay.
That was like my first time experiencing like testing on my own and like going off from the doctor not ordering labs and just trying to advocate for myself. And I was like, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm gonna, pay out of pocket, for these tests because you are terrible. And from there, just ordering those tests and it coming back horrendous, like postmenopausal hormones, completely tanked cortisol,
Mm,
every, GI issue possible from H. pylori to gut dysbiosis to bacterial, just the bacterial imbalances I had and all of that. It was so bad that it made me excited because I was like, seeing everything go wrong actually made me like feel like I can fix this. Like if there was nothing wrong and I was feeling shitty, I think that's what I would be like, oh my gosh, it's all in my head. But like seeing those like values be so bad, it was finally like, we can fix this and we
yeah.
can, improve how we're feeling. So yeah, it was kind of like a wake up that it's not that I was hoping to see imbalances or hoping to see negative results, but I was honestly like really happy when it came back.
Oh no, I completely relate. Like, and I didn't even have like the gut side of things, but
Yeah.
like with the Dutch, I remember when I had sent it off and I was thinking to myself like, so there's two outcomes here. Like there could be nothing wrong.
Mhm.
Because at one point I had actually done a Dutch adrenal, just the cortisol, and a couple months back, and I was like, shoot, I wasted my money. I should have done the complete, but I did it at the wrong time where like I worked out that mornings and it was like a heavy, intense CrossFit workout. So I totally just like botched whatever the results were. So I didn't even really look into that one.
Mhm.
So I did it. I was like, two outcomes here. Like it could look kind of normal, like the last one that I did, and like this really is just like this is entrepreneurship. This is running a business. This is just like I need to work on like my mental stress management, and maybe that's all it is. Or the other outcome is like maybe it really could be a lot different,
Mhm.
and like I was just holding on to that hope. So just like you, when I got the test back, I was literally at the airport coming back from Denver, and I literally just like looked through it a little bit and I was like, oh my god, there's things that are out of range. Like this is so exciting because maybe like I really could feel a lot better. So I was
Mhm.
the exact same as you of like I was so motivated. And so I think that functional testing can just be so validating because it's looking for that subclinical. We're going to do another episode on like exactly how we look at those things different than Western medicine, but like subclinical dysfunction is very different than overt disease. And so you can feel like absolute crap and only have subclinical dysfunction or things be what a doctor might say is a little off.
Mhm.
And for women like us that are pretty like, I mean, we're looking for optimization. We're not just looking to like survive. We're looking to optimize to feel our best. Like that's so validating. And just to be on the other side of that, to like actually have energy, not be losing my train of thought right now. Like that's huge. So that was definitely my experience too.
Yeah. You never want to see bad results until you can prove to yourself you can fix it.
Yeah.
You know that you have the tools under your belt to heal it, and then, now you're seeing what it feels like not to have all of those issues. So, very happy.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then for you, just with like, because you had mentioned in 2020, that was the first time you stepped away to look deeper. And I'm so sorry if you can hear the leaf blower outside. He's just going back and forth. Um, but with that, taking that step out to like get that testing done, so with what you were looking to solve before, like what was your experience with like working with your doctor? Like how far did you get? Like how did you have to push to like get to where you got? And what was that like?
Yeah, so I found out I had a lot of health issues. I would say like preteen to teen years. We found out I had one kidney. Okay, cool. Didn't, I saw a nephrologist for that, but like they pretty much said like just be careful. And I'm like, okay,
Great.
thank you. And then I had stomach issues, my whole life. I would always be like super bloated. My mom said it was like a Buddha belly. Like I would always be like super, narrow and then just like a huge belly.
Hmm.
And they were just like, "Oh, she's just built like her dad. Like she just has a belly." Like I'm like, "Okay." So that was like my childhood and like preteen and teen years of just like doctors saying like, "Oh, you're just, a kid." And then I was suffering from like high blood pressure when I was playing soccer. And so they were like, "Oh, she's just an anxious kid. That's why she has high blood pressure."
Oh.
And it was just like thing after thing of like getting a diagnosis but them not doing anything about it.
Hmm.
Or going to the doctor, I found out I had a murmur. Okay. Went to a cardiologist. They're like, "Oh, you're healthy. You're fine. You'll be good." So just like small diagnoses that really aren't a big deal. But as like a preteen and a teenage female, I just felt so dismissed for those small things that when it started to become bigger, I didn't even want to go to the doctor. So like
Hmm.
when I lost my period for 8 months and I was suffering from amenorrhea. I didn't want to go to the doctor because I had that history of them just like dismissing me. And then I came off of birth control myself and started breaking out in acne. And I was like, what is happening? But I wanted to figure it out on my own because I had that history of doctors just dismissing me.
Hmm.
So I did get to the point where I would type out my medical history, type out my symptoms, do my own research, and bring it to appointments with me to
Hmm.
pretty much say, you can't brush me off. I know what I'm talking about and I need your help. Are you with me or not? Because I'll go find someone else. And
Yeah.
they were all not with me.
Oh
So
wow.
I never found a doctor. I went to the rheumatologist. He said, do infusions. And I was like, I'm not going to be on immunosuppressants and infusions, hours a week for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
how can we heal this without just putting a band-aid over it?
Yeah.
So I never got to the point where I had like a physician, a nurse practitioner, like anybody listen to me.
Wow.
So I started working. I read, Jolene Brighton, right? We talked about her before.
Yeah.
Fantastic with like coming off of the pill, hormonal, the fact that it's not normal to lose your period for 8 months. Um, I started, doing a lot of research that Lacey Dunn was doing. She's a dietitian and she does all of the classes that I took. And Dasha was doing a bunch of classes at the time. So I was like, wait, there's like actual healthcare workers who aren't dismissing you. So I went to all of their courses, like all of their classes, And I worked alongside Lacey to do my own Dutch test back then
Mm-hmm.
and my GI map. And she was like, holy crap, like, this is not okay that it's gotten to this point because you were dismissed for all those years. If we tackled this, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you probably wouldn't end up with all of these issues that you have.
Mm.
So that's kind of my experience with healthcare and, working in healthcare myself and like getting my master's in health science and all of that. I did minor in holistic health because I knew I wanted to combine
Yeah.
Western medicine with more like holistic functional health medicine. Um, but yeah, my experience was always just being brushed off. And that even came out with me finding out I had heart issues, right? That murmur, I actually am missing a heart valve. I have a hole in my heart.
Oh my gosh.
And that was dismissed because it was just a murmur when I was younger. And my 2 periods every single month for my entire life that I was dismissed and just put on birth control. Now we found out I have 2 uterus and 2 cervix. So just all of those things that have kind of tumbled one after the next. I do have a lot of mistrust in like going to see actual physicians. So that's where like when women come to us
Yeah.
and they have those issues, I am like, thank you so much for voicing that you have these issues and not just brushing it off because there is someone out there who
Yeah.
will listen to you and who will fix this. Because a lot of them do have the same experience of going and saying, you're young, you're healthy, you don't need lab work. That happened to me
Yeah.
last week to a client.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's my experience with being dismissed when asking for more testing or more anything from a
Yeah.
physician. So yeah,
Wow.
we love our doctors, but we also don't love being dismissed. So
Yeah. Like I'll still trust a brain surgeon if I need
mm-hmm.
brain surgery 100%,
Yeah,
but if I'm trying to optimize something like my cycle, my fertility, my quality of life, like I'm definitely probably not going to go in that route.
yeah,
That is an extensive history with that. I definitely can't measure up, but I will say one story is in my so and I actually have a post coming out about this that talks a little bit more about my half masters. So I finished my undergrad in neuroscience, and then I was like, you know what? I'm already working in this health and fitness field. Like, let me go get a master's in nutrition, sports science, whatever. And the topic of study that I chose for my master's thesis was how hormonal birth control affects body composition outcomes in
mm-hmm.
women, and between the different types. So, like the progesterone only, the arm implant, the IUDs, the pill, all of that. So, I have, and I still have binders of research just like stacked up on this stuff. So I was super fascinated, and it taught me a lot about like the female cycle. And in that time, I wanted to like experiment on myself. So I was like pricking my finger every day to get my blood sugar. Like I was taking data about so many things. And I was like, you know what? Let me go like see my hormone levels because I had the arm implant at the
Mm-hmm.
time. So I went to my doctor with like this long list of everything I wanted to get tested. And, my reason was purely for experimentation. And so, like, I didn't have concerns necessarily. But she was basically just like, she did laugh at first. She just kind of laughed in my face. And I was like, okay, well, what can you do for me? Like, what can you order? And she was like, I need to have like a reason to order
Mm-hmm.
this. She was like, I'll try to work with you, but like, can you say that you're like gaining weight or like you have issues with X, Y, and Z? And so I kind of just fibbed a little bit and was like, yeah, I'm gaining weight and I can't control it. And she was like, all right, we'll get this ordered or whatever. And then the bill came from insurance and they only covered like a third of it. And then
Mm-hmm.
I was paying out the butt for labs. So that was fun. But yeah, she did laugh in my face. So that was interesting, but she was fairly cooperative relative to a lot of the stories I hear from clients. So now
Mm-hmm.
when our clients go to their doctor's appointments, like I'm literally writing up like 3-page essays on like, bring them this, show them this. This is how I want you to say this. And like, if they give you this pushback, I want you to say this. And like,
Yeah.
it's really extensive like advocacy, I think, that we're also doing on the back end. But thankfully, we also have the ability to just order it too out of
Mm-hmm.
pocket. So
Yeah, definitely. And, working alongside physicians and nurse practitioners for the last few years, I want to send them, I don't want to say anything negative. I'm sending
yeah,
them all of the love. It's an insurance scheme. It's
Yeah.
an insurance scheme, and it's they have to say it's medically necessary, right? Which is
Mhm.
why that doctor was like, you can't just. It shouldn't be you have to have something wrong to check
Mhm.
what's going on under the hood, right? You should just be able to, like, every 6 months to a year, like, hey, where are my levels at? So you
Yeah.
can catch it early, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have something significantly wrong in order, to make it medically necessary to see your own health, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely like if you got anything from this, like I hope you are listening and knowing like, okay, you can get tests done. Honestly, at pretty affordable rates. Like I'm really pumped about like what we're able to get for our clients, and they can even bill through like their HSA and FSA, get it at
Mm.
a very decent out of pocket rate. Um, and I hope that you know that like you can tackle this from a holistic standpoint versus just testing some hormones and having to go on HRT or doing infusions or taking a bunch of supplements. So, hopefully, this episode hit home for you. And if you're wondering if lab testing could help or if we could help you, definitely send us a message on Instagram. And we have free guides, tests that we can, suggest for you, but we could also work with you holistically on that, which is our preference. So that will be that for this episode. And then in our next one, we'll get into more on how functional labs can transform your health and really the nitty gritty of what we're testing and what we're seeing with our clients. So thank you guys for listening, and see you back on the next one.